their own organization may restrict them. So they created and moved into a co-creation environment. So this idea of cloud, and cloud that, yes, of course you can use it to look at your workloads today, and yes, of course you can use it to look at your shift of your cost base today, but actually looking at how cloud can actually change the operating environment and the operating model that you have is, I think, one of the pioneering mandates that we refer to when we look at our CIO agenda. We have seen this same type of co-creation and shift in the business model happening with, specifically in another instance with banks, with Nedbank in South Africa, where they thought outside of their existing structure, their existing way of engaging with end consumers, and they shifted the business model with cloud as an enabler. And I think what's telling about this is it's not the technology that made them do something different. It's not the fact that new technology was there and it made them do it different. It was this shift in consumer requirements, in social requirements, the role of the banks in that instance, and the technology that could enable them to do that. The sorts of things I mean are that we're increasingly able to track, monitor, and measure at a more fine-grained level, which means that we can actually start to go through an enterprise or an ecosystem and know who's paying for what or who's using what, who needs billing for what, at what point and what time. That ability to use technology at an increasingly fine-grained level is what enables doors to open up with cloud that haven't previously been opening up for us. So social computing and cloud to enable the social business is a really, really critical shift that we're seeing. We know that social computing technology is, the products are set to increase and grow, the market is set to increase and grow by 38% in the next couple of years. We know it's a growth area. We know, I found a really interesting, I didn't fire you, I was tempted to fire you with loads of stats and data, but you know, I think we all get bombarded with this, whether we're at home or at work. We know that the world we live in is shifting. We talk about today's young children being the digital natives of tomorrow. We know that's true. If you've got children or grandchildren, you know the reality of that. There was a stat that I found incredibly interesting from Facebook. They said that, and I believe it, they said that 1,333 years is spent daily on Facebook. So we've been around, we as a company have been around for 100 years. Imagine the fact that each day around the world, 1,333 years of time is spent on Facebook. You know, what we know is that people are engaging, seek to engage, and in fact demand to engage in a different way. Not only in their work, not only in their home life, but increasingly in the way they engage in citizen services or financial services or retail services. So if we don't support that, then we're going to find ourselves being left behind. But what we also know is that the reality of enabling cloud, the reality of enabling a social business, social connectivity in cloud, when you actually start to move beyond commodity services, becomes actually quite difficult. We ourselves, from 4,000 cloud instances that we manage or support around the world, there were 13 billion security instances in one day, and that's not a one point in time stat. It's an average, but 13 billion security instances in one day over 4,000 clouds. That's a lot. And what we mean by that is where you've got either you're not managing the isolation of your tenants properly, you're not managing the data protection properly, or you're at risk of intrusion. There are a variety of ranges, as you know, of security risks that cloud is exposed to. We ourselves, through either the NATO cloud that we run or the work we do with some of our federal and also some of our quite sort of deep clouds that we do around the world, we know that handling security at quite deep levels is something that we all need to take account of. As the ecosystem shifts and as we start to move data either between agencies, authorities, or the private sector, the way that we connect and orchestrate the processes and the data becomes an increasing challenge for us from a cloud perspective. So data is at the core, we believe, at the core of the future of the way we should be looking at cloud. 88% of today's data is unstructured. When we look at cloud, we look at the way we handle data at rest and data in motion. And one of the things, and I don't even know, I'll be honest with you, I work for IBM and I have no idea what this stat means, but I'm going to tell you anyway because I thought, well, it's got to be important. By 2020, there's going to be 35 zettabytes of data floating around in the world in which we live in. Now, all I know is that that's 44 times more than what we have today. And I know that what we have today, we feel we can barely cope with. So the fact that by 2020 it's going to be 44 times that, given our current predictions, and given our current predictions, we can always guess it's going to actually be more than that as well. We are in an environment of extremely shifting data. That data can be housed and can be leveraged within our cloud environments. So it's very important for us that as organizations we factor that in. But I think what's important for us too is to understand where that data is meaningful to our business, where we can earn from it or not. And if we don't earn from our own data, who might earn from our data if we put it somewhere for free? So giving you a sense of these extended value chains or this connection between industries, markets and society, I wanted to talk about the environmental. I was asked in this piece to talk about some of the environmental pieces. And I've connected this in a couple of ways. We know that cloud does enable us to start thinking about our data center consolidation strategy, our storage optimization, and looking at our technology footprint. We know that, and it's absolutely right that we consider cloud to enable that agenda. What we've done is taken the thinking of the role that cloud plays in the environmental discussion a couple of steps further. We've got some work with Galway Bay in Ireland, where we've actually, through a cloud provisioned environment, connected the smart water management. What we mean by that is tracking pollution and the environmental changes so that the right interventions can be put in place by the right providers, a number of providers at the right time. So it's actually about changing the way that we're able to serve the community with cloud at the core. Another one is Rio, a smart city cloud, where we've actually connected police data, traffic data, and city operations data into a common view so that they can actually support their city in a very different way. You probably see, like it or not, you probably see some of the impacts of some of this in London, even with things like congestion charging. But if we look at Stockholm, Stockholm's the last one. Stockholm is where, through cloud, we actually provision the connection of data through to the cars or through to individual devices so that people can move around the city and be transported around the city in a more effective way. It has had a significant impact with 22% less traffic, 40% lower emissions. There are a number of ways, if you think outside of today's business model, there are a number of ways that cloud can go beyond just your own enterprise environmental impact and actually start to consider a different sustainability agenda. So we talk about, I talk about asymmetric markets. One thing that we notice from a cloud perspective, from our experience in the UK and from around the world, is that we're shifting away, not only from the silos within the organizations, but we're shifting away from the sector silos that we might have seen in the past. We're seeing more collaboration happening out of sector and across sector, and cloud sits behind a lot of that. So what we see, for example, is where you may get weather analytics, for example, that's being shared with maybe even an insurance business so they can manage risk differently. I talked to you about the health environment where they're connecting in a different way. We ourselves have just announced with Cable and Wireless a smart energy cloud where we're connecting with the energy and utilities companies and with telco and telecommunications to actually support smart metering, smart grid in the UK. So this